What's up, y'all? So you're gonna have to excuse any noise that's happening in the background. Just the building I'm in is kind of noisy. But what I'm gonna try to do is recreate a burning match illustration. I seen someone post on, I think it might have been Facebook or TikTok. But if you're painting on a black surface, what you're gonna need to do is kind of lay down some white base paint. If you're gonna add any color to it, it just needs something to kind of make it pop more. Otherwise, it's gonna be really dull and kind of hard to see. So first things first is putting down a white base coat layer and kind of building on top of that. And what you don't see that I have off camera here is some reference images to actual like burning match sticks. So just going on Google and finding some images for reference. So first thing I'm going to do is kind of lay down some of these little frames or like the blocking out the overall shape. So I'm going to get back to you in 1 second here. So now I kind of have the stick frame laid out there. If you look at the reference images again, this is just something I pulled off of Google. There's kind of like, from when the gas is escaping, when it's burning, gases are emitted. It actually has like a little halo kind of situation happening around it. There's a few different colors happening too. So I'm gonna actually kind of make this flame a little bit more exaggerated, going off of the other reference image I saw and making this a little larger, but I want to leave like a little space between the actual match stick head and where the flame is going to begin. So I'm going to kind of fog a little bit of white here, and then we're going to add some color on top of it. So I'll be right back in a sec. Sorry for the noise in the motor, but it's a lot brighter at the top. So I'm gonna lightly mist some of the white paint more towards the top because I need that part to be brighter, almost blown out, and just really lightly pulling back on the trigger of the airbrush. So I don't add too much paint. It's easier to kind of make it lighter and a little harder to make this thing dark. So I had to be a little cautious about how much paint I'm releasing. That's why it's a good idea to kind of clean the airbrush thoroughly before you use this thing. So I need this to be a lot brighter, so I can be a little bit more heavy-handed right now, but kind of gradually fading this down. Hopefully you can hear me over this motor. And then the edge of this, again, this is where the main part of the flame is escaping, like the gases are being released from the burning of the wood. So these parts are actually a little bit more bright and gets a little more dim close to the match stick itself. And again, I'm gonna fade this down, and then towards the bottom, the matchstick is a little bit more lit, but the embers are pretty bright around the end, at least in the reference image I'm using. And then that's all going to be colored in. So I'm trying to be cautious on time here. So I might actually pause this video and come back to you guys in a second here. All right. So what I did again was kind of just blocking out the shape here. So keeping in mind, what we're doing isn't focused on necessarily just the final product here, but keeping in mind we're adding colors on top. So when you do, all the contrast and highlights that you do are going to be kind of dulled down a bit. So if I wanted to add like a little bit of yellow, because the brightest part of the flame, again, my reference image here, hopefully that you can see that, the brightest part's going to be blown out. That's going to be at the very top. So when I'm adding yellow, I'm keeping in mind it's going to be like a little band coming down here, and it kind of fades it with a little bit of blue. But when I do that, I'm going to lose some of the harder contrast in the dark area here. So it's going to kind of need me to go back over with some darker colors, either a darker blue or even black, to kind of knock back some of the shadows in here. But I'm just keeping in mind when I'm adding my yellow, I know that this is going to be, it's going to be vivid because I put down the white base, but I'm just losing some of that contrast. So when you're adding your color, like, kind of think ahead of time. You kind of have to plot ahead of time, knowing that when I do this, I'm going to lose some of the shadows I have here when I add color on here. So I'll have to go back in with some darker colors. So kind of plan ahead when you're working on your image. Just for this one, I also know that some of the flames were pretty bright, so knowing that it just adding pure like yellow or red, whatever I was going to add, orange, it's not going to shine as bright, so I have to add that white base. That's why I have these like really blown out looking highlights on here, just knowing that I need that to make the color pop more. Same thing if you're doing like screen printing on t-shirts. If you ever print on like a darker garment, you need a brighter color for it to show through. So that's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I'm gonna pause this real fast and kind of get back to this, and then I'll add some color. Okay, so I kind of have this where I want it as far as laying down like my overall shadow and highlight kind of layer. This is the part where I like, it's not my strong point with color mixing, but I'm gonna try to add some yellow, some red, and some orange to try to create some of this flame here. I'm gonna take a little creative liberty here because it's not gonna be a one-to-one image, but I'm gonna lay down the base on top of this and see how this goes. So talk to you in a second. So I just mixed some yellow in my cup here, and I'm gonna try to put down a very light fog and kind of see where this goes. So wish me luck. So I'm gonna add some to the little embers here, and I'll have to go back over this with a few other colors, but just adding little dots here and there. But because I have that white, it's gonna look a lot more vivid. But these are kind of like, it's kind of like a muted yellow, almost closer to a skin tone. And I'm gonna go back over with a regular solid white for the center part of here. But yeah, get back to you in 1 second. Okay, so, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I also have a whole tub of Q-tips. So when I'm washing this out in the sink, I can also kind of really quickly make sure there's no extra little paint left in there. But I'm gonna lay down some blue and kind of go back with some darker blue and then some black, and hopefully this will turn out looking decent. I guess I should quickly mention that I'm using some light phthalo blue. I'm gonna use some indigo blue. These are all Golden brand. I'm not sponsored by these folks, I just really like their paint. Some titanium white. I'll be using some carbon black, and I just had used some yellow medium. So that's the colors I have so far. Anyway, talk to you in a second. So I just finished adding some phthalo blue and some indigo. I'm actually going to add a little bit of magenta to the bottom of the flame to bring some of that color down a bit, and then also some gold. I'll probably be using this more towards the matchstick head, and then I'll kind of fine tune it a little bit using some black and some white to bring out the highlights. Okay, so now I'm just gonna add black to kind of bring back some of the scorch from the flames and the stick itself, and on the match head, and then fine tune it with a little bit of white highlights. Now I'm just kind of shaping the top of this a little bit, and then I'm going with the highlights and bring it all together. But yeah, it's kind of like flattening out some of these forms, going off of the reference image here. All right, talk to you in a second. Doing decent on time, so I'm gonna add the highlights right now, just off of, again, the reference image to the bottom, and then bring back out some of the highlights in that center part where it's like blowing out on the flame itself, and then maybe to the little matchstick. But yeah, just a few drops go a very long way when it comes to airbrushing. So I mean, like 2-3 drops will get you a good distance there, and like my cup is like barely full. Like I barely have anything in there, but that's gonna get all the highlights I need. And then I'm probably gonna end up touching this up using more carbon black ink, but that I have in a jar, and I'm just gonna hand paint just the background black so it's just even and not blotchy. All right, talk to you in a second. And for the last little steps, I'm using this golden acrylic varnish, a glossy varnish, and I already did one coat, so I'm gonna do another coat. And now for the glamour shot. So fading into all kinds of different colors here. just want to get this thing to focus. But no, this took around 30 minutes or so, and that's including time to like wash out the canvas, or sorry, wash out the airbrush and swapping out paint and stuff. So, yeah, I think it turned out okay. It's about 2 coats of varnish on here. This one's still a little wet, so I don't want to really touch this thing just yet. I'm trying to get my phone to focus on this. There we go. Anyway, what do you think? Is this something you'd try? Have you tried this before? How'd that work out for you? Let me know in the comments. All right, y'all.